Compare the prices of graphics cards at various points in the month, compare hundreds of benchmarks over a variety of different technology sites, make a few charts out of the data, and you have the gaming graphics head to head for April 2015. First up is the Nvidia GT730 GDDR5 versus the AMD R7 GDDR5. Now both cards come with 1GB of GDDR5 memory. Be wary though, because there are DDR3 versions out there as well. Do not ever buy a DDR3 graphics card, they simply aren't worth it. They're a lot slower than the GDDR5 versions. This includes 2GB versions and 4GB versions. If you find those, they're just a complete waste. Stick to the GDDR5. Now looking at the benchmarks, you can see that the red bar wins almost all of them, 9 out of the 10. The Nvidia card wins the Batman Arkham Origins, but that's really because it's an Nvidia sponsored title. Otherwise, the AMD card is clearly faster in the other 9 games. It is in fact 18% faster over those 10 benchmarks. Now a quick look at the prices, £52 versus £44, making it a complete no-brainer in the UK. The faster and cheaper card is the R7 240. The dollar and euro price is pretty similar, and obviously the AMD card is a little bit more expensive. You have to decide, is $8 worth an extra 18%? Same with the euro, is another $7 worth 18% faster graphics card? I believe it is, yeah. I would definitely pay that small amount for the faster graphics card. Now both of these cards are very low end, they require very little power and should work on just about any PC, any power supply. Both cards are basically only suitable for low settings 1080p gaming. Now if you've got a smaller resolution on that in your monitor, then obviously you'll get better performance out of it, yeah? The pretty clear winner for the best entry level graphics card is the R7 240 GDDR5. Moving on to the Nvidia GT740 GDDR5 versus the AMD R7 250X GDDR5. Now both cards again come with 1GB of GDDR5. You can maybe find DDR3 versions and also versions with 2GB or 4GB of GDDR5. Do not buy any of those. These cards are not powerful enough to really make use of more than 1GB of GDDR5. Looking at the benchmarks, the red bars are so far ahead in just about all the games. Again, Batman Arkham Origins, which is an Nvidia sponsored title, shows an Nvidia win, but the rest, it really looks a bit like a massacre for the red team. The 250X is actually 28% faster, which is a higher level of graphics card. It's basically in the next tier up. Looking at the prices, £70 versus £68. Once again, a much faster card is cheaper in Britain. The R7 250X is so much faster, it's easily more worth buying. Obviously, if you're looking for a faster card in America as well, $90 is not so much more than $72 that it is not worth it. The R7 250X is that much faster that it is easily worth another $18 over the GT740, yeah? Now, looking at the power requirements, both of these require one 6-pin PCIe connector on your power supply, so make sure that it's actually going to work in your PC before you buy it. So wrapping this one up, the 740 GT is only suitable for low settings 1080p gaming. It is barely faster than the R7 240. The R7 250X is suitable for low or medium settings 1080p gaming. It is that level higher than the GT740. The very clear winner of the best upper entry level graphics card is the R7 250X. Right, we're moving on to the Nvidia GTX 750 1GB GDDR5 versus the AMD R7 260X 2GB GDDR5. Now, don't worry too much about the 2GB versus the 1GB here, because neither card is really powerful enough to make full use of it. Right, looking at the benchmarks, once again the red bars are generally well ahead. Bioshock Infinite, which is a good game for Nvidia, the Nvidia card wins in that one. It also wins in Metro Last Light, but otherwise the 260X is just that bit faster. It is in fact 16% faster. Looking at the prices, £84 versus £87, $110 versus $102, and €116 versus €114. The AMD card is cheaper in America and it's pretty close in Britain and in Europe as well. Here's the first difference though regarding power draw. The GT750 will work with any power supply and it should fit into most PCs quite nicely as well. The R7 260X does require the one 6-pin power supply, so if you don't have that 6-pin, then the 750 is a pretty good option. Otherwise, again, you want to go with the faster card in this case when the money especially is pretty much the same. Both cards are suitable for medium settings 1080p gaming. The winner of the best mainstream graphics card is the R7 260X 2GB. Right, so it's a GTX 750 Ti versus the R9 270. Now both cards come with 2GB GDDR5. You can get the 750 Ti in 1GB GDDR5. It may well be worth doing that if you can save money on it. The card can make use of the 2GB, however, only in certain games, and 1GB, you're not going to lose that much out of it. Right, looking at the benchmarks, it's the same old story again. The red bars are higher. The R9 270 is just that much faster than the 750 Ti. It is in fact 28% faster again. Now, you are starting to pay just that little bit more for it. Now, it's £11 more in Britain, $20 more, €24 more. It's probably worth it though, because 28% for that little money extra. For me, yeah, go with the faster card. There is slightly more to it than that though. The 750 Ti is a very small and efficient card, so it works on any power supply. It is in fact the most powerful card you can get that does not require any more 6-pin connectors. The R9 270, it's just that little bit more powerful. It uses that little bit more power. It's going to cost you that little bit more in the long run as well. You do require the 1 6-pin for that. So keep that in mind. Not only is the R9 270 that little bit more expensive, it's going to cost you more in the long run. It is, however, a clear tier above in performance. The 750 Ti is suitable for medium settings 1080p gaming, whereas the R9 270 is suitable for a mix of medium and high settings 1080p gaming. The best mid-range graphics card is the R9 270. We're moving on to the Nvidia GTX 960. And it's up against the AMD R9 280. The GTX 960 has only got 2GB of GDDR5 memory, and the R9 280 has 3GB of GDDR5 memory. Unlike previous cards, this is starting to matter now. Both these cards are fast enough that they can make use of the whole 3GB of memory. Maybe not in all games, yeah? So 2GB works okay in many cases for the 960. However, as soon as you up the settings and stuff like that, the 3GB start, it can start to tell. Now looking at the benchmark, there's 16 games benchmarked here on high ultra settings. The 960 wins 10 of them against 6 wins for the 280. Now, most of them are pretty close. 1 or 2 big wins for Nvidia in Skyrim and Call of Duty. There's a couple of decent sized wins in Batman, believe it or not, and also Hitman Absolution for the 280. Overall though, that's a 1% victory for the GTX 960. If we move on to the prices, you've got £150 for the 960 versus £129 for the 280. That's a very good price for the 280. It's $197 versus $189 and $201 versus €201. So basically speaking, the prices are pretty close, apart from in the UK where, that's 20 quid you're getting the 280 for less. So you would certainly consider the 280 as being a very good deal in the UK. In America and Europe, yeah, you can see that they're pretty close. Right, now once again, you can see that the 960 only requires the 1 6-pin PCIe, whereas the R9 280 requires 2 6-pins. It's an older architecture for AMD. The new Maxwell 960 chip is much more efficient than AMD's older architecture. And this basically means that even though you're saving a little bit of money, it's really not that much, and over say maybe 2 or 3 years, you will lose more money if you're using the R9 280. Both equally suitable for high settings 1080p gaming. It's when you start to increase the resolution a little bit that the 280 maybe start to pull ahead. Now, this is something that is worth talking about, because the 960 is a very weak card in certain areas. Obviously it's got less memory. It's also got a much smaller memory bus, which sort of means that the higher the resolution you go, the more the 280 tends to pull away from it. So just be wary of that, because looking forward, the 280 will probably, in fact, the 280 will undoubtedly be a faster card. However, the 960 is slightly faster now, and it is also quite a lot more efficient regarding power. And because of that, the best upper mid-range graphics card is the GTX 960. Right, so next up is the Nvidia GTX Unobtainium, and it's up against the AMD R9 280X. Now, the R9 280X 3GB GDDR5, it's 3GB of GDDR5 memory. It costs £170 or $228 and €261. Now here's the thing why the R9 280X has got no competition. The Nvidia cards at this level would be the GTX 770, GTX 680. Both are a little bit slower than the 280X, however both of them have very highly inflated prices right now because they're end of line. So basically what Nvidia's doing is running down that line, and because there's so few of them around, they can charge whatever they want, and people who don't really know what they're buying see these cards, oh, Nvidia GTX 770, even though it costs $100 more than this R9 280X and is a little bit slower, people are still buying it, yeah? So Nvidia's got nothing really in between the GTX 960 and the GTX 970, which you're going to see next. And that basically means that the only card around about this price range that is worth buying, the rest are simply not worth buying, is the R9 280X. Now be aware that you do need a 1 8-pin and 1 6-pin PCIe adapters on your power supply. It is quite a power hungry card, so just be aware of that. The 280X is suitable for ultra settings 1080p gaming. It even can run games higher than that. And you'll not be at all surprised to learn that the best enthusiast level graphics card is the R9 280X. Right, we're moving on to the Nvidia GTX 970 4GB, 3.5GB, up against the AMD R9 290 4GB. Right, where to start with this? The GTX 970 is supposedly a 4GB graphics card. That's what Nvidia was claiming at least. And then they found out that really it's only 3.5GB and then a very, very slow half gigabyte to make up the rest of the 4GB memory, yeah? This is obviously upsetting a lot of people. You can read more about it on the web. I'm not here to, judge them on that. Why do they do it? Because they can get away with it. No such problems with the AMD card. You get a true 4GB of GDDR5 with that. Right, so let's have a look at the benchmarks. The green bar's just a little bit ahead in more games, as you can see. They've got couple of big wins as well. That looks like a pretty big win in Wolfenstein, which is a pretty strange game to benchmark in all honesty. Pretty big win in Call of Duty as well. The AMD card's got a decent win in Shadow of Mordor and also in Hitman Absolution, which you've seen the AMD cards do well in before. Otherwise though, it looks pretty close. And that's 27 games over a variety of different websites. Overall, the GTX 970 is 4% faster at that resolution. Now, how much more do you pay for that 4%? It's about £30 more expensive in the UK. Talking another $35 and around about €30. That's not too bad. Once you get to this stage of card, you are starting to, pay more for lesser increases in performance. So this is something that you do generally see quite a lot around about this performance level. Now, regarding power, it's the same old story of the AMD cards are generally using a bit more power. The 970 requires two 6-pin PCIe adapters, where the R9 290 requires one 8-pin and one 6-pin. Overall, you're talking maybe 50-60 watts extra power while gaming. That can add up to maybe another $20-30 at the end of the year. So you've really got to add that to the overall cost of the graphics card. Both cards are suitable for high settings 2560 by 1440 gaming. They can't quite handle 4K yet. Obviously low resolution 1080p and stuff like that, absolutely no problem for either of these cards. Nvidia makes some questionable decisions regarding this card, but there's no question that it's a marvel of efficiency and very fast. And that's why it wins the best high-end graphics card. Right, so now we're at the Nvidia GTX 980 4GB up against AMD R9 290X 4GB. Right, now both of these cards do actually have 4GB GDDR5. The problem that afflicts the GTX 970 does not affect the 980. It is a true 4GB card. Right, now let's have a look at the benchmarks. That looks at about 25, 26 games or so. The AMD card only wins 3 of them. Shadows of Mordor's one, and it also wins a rather old game, Crisis Warhead and Dead Rising 3. The green bars are just that little bit higher than you saw with the 970 versus the 290. Overall, it is 12% faster than the R9 290X. So you can see a clear gap there, yeah? But what about the prices? £413 against £226. That's almost double the cost. $524 versus $275. Once again, almost double. €559 versus €311. I don't know in what world this is worth it, yeah, but 12% faster for all that money, it's just not worth it. Again, the AMD card uses that little bit more power, probably another 50-60 watts again, which does add maybe $20-30 per year. But how many years would you need to play with the card, in order to make up that massive gap in price that's there already? Both cards are suitable for ultra settings, 2560 by 1440 gaming. Again, both cards are just not quite up to the 4K resolution yet. This one's pretty much a no-brainer. The best extreme graphics card based on the far cheaper price while not being that much slower is the R9 290X 4GB. Finally, we come to the Nvidia GTX Titan X against the AMD no-show. So at 4K resolution, the Titan X is 32% faster than the GTX 980, 43% faster than the R9 290X, 45% faster than the 780 Ti, 54% faster than the GTX 970 and 56% faster than the R9 290. Now remember, this is 4K resolution, which really is about the highest you get so far. It comes with 12GB of GDDR5. Now this is just pure marketing, it's complete overkill. There are no games that require 12GB of GDDR5 and there won't be for a very, very long time. Now I can assure you that this 12GB GDDR5 is not cheap. So the reason why that they're doing this really is purely for marketing purposes. They do know that they will be able to get the money back on it, that's the thing. Now, talking about the money, £900, $1,400 or €1,150. Bit rich for me for a graphics card, I've got to say. Anytime I see a comma in the price of a graphics card, I would certainly think, what? But there you go, that's the price you pay for the top of the line. Now, it's quite a power hungry card as well. Simply because it's such a powerful card, yeah. It needs one 8-pin and one 6-pin PCIe, but just, be aware of that it is quite a bit above the 980 and 970 type cards in terms of power draw. Nvidia is touting the Titan X as the first true 4K graphics card. I'm not convinced about that yet. It's certainly not 4K at ultra settings. However, 4K on high settings can certainly be done with the Titan X. You can't win it if you're not in AMD, so the best ultra graphics card is the GTX Titan X 12GB. Right, so this is a trash list. Don't get upset if your card is on it. It simply means that it's probably overpriced or it's a dual graphics card like the Titan Z or the 295X2. I do not rate these cards. When you pay this amount of money on a graphics card, you expect better service than what both companies give you. So for me, dual graphics cards are a total waste of money. Otherwise, it's older cards and cards that are just too expensive for what you can get now. Coming within the next few months, we have the new AMD 300 series. This is really one to look out for. It's going to be starting with the mid-range cards, so probably a 360 or a 370 to start with. Hopefully next month, the 390X, the flagship, is due in June. I'm really looking forward to this one. It could be taking on the Titan X. We can expect a GTX 980 Ti and also a possible 960 Ti around about the same time. Check the video description for links to the best prices on the cards in this video. If you want to help the channel out, don't forget to like and subscribe.